This is Aesthetically Trained, the podcast. Pushing you to year-on-year progression. With your host, Ross McKinley.
Yo, Ross McKinley, Aesthetically Trained, the podcast. We're back. A very special episode. One of my close friends, an incredible guy who has recently achieved 190 days sober. So this episode, I want to welcome Nick Denton, Sober and Thoughts. Nick, welcome.
Thank you very much. Well, thanks very much for having me.
Awesome.
I'm a big fan.
He's got his merch on. For those of you watching on YouTube, you can see he's wearing his merch. You might have seen Nick's transformation before as well, but this episode is very special. It's to kind of celebrate you a little bit in a journey that some of the other men that work with us, for sure, I think maybe might be thinking about going through or they've thought about before, and it's something that we're going to spend today's episode talking about, and that is going sober and alcohol, the benefits of going sober, Nick's journey, why you should maybe think about doing it, the warning signs, the benefits, all of that. So stick around, that is what we're going to talk about. Nick, to start, tell everyone a little bit about you and kind of how we've got to this point.
So as you said, 190 days. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's flown by actually. It's gone really, really quickly. It's gone faster than I thought it was going to be. A really, really hard slog, and it would take every sort of ounce of my determination to get to this point. But thus far, it's been pretty good. Yeah. I'm happy with how things have gone. Getting to this point, I had some really bad mental health struggles last year, which obviously you know about. They carried on into the start of this year. I'd started taking some counselling, but I was still drinking. Yeah. Alongside that, and I'd started going to an alcohol support group. Not a group. Appointments with a one-on-one counsellor, but I was still drinking, and that was the problem. That was the root cause to all the troubles that I was having mentally. Yeah.
So before you get into that any deeper, everyone probably will know anyway. You might have seen Nick on my social media, but me and Nick are friends. We've been friends for several years, so I already knew of his struggles, if you like, when we were younger. So you're 31 years old now, and this had been a recurring theme. And we're not talking about, I know he's a far more intelligent bloke than me. He's going to give you the different types of alcoholics or whatever.
Believe that.
He's going to give you the different levels or however you want to describe. But Nick, you are, to clarify for everyone, you are, I think the terms are fully functioning. Maybe he's not alcoholic, but that was kind of the level where you are. I think you wouldn't necessarily have known your struggles, other than we knew that you had mental health problems. We knew that maybe when you did drink, you drank a little bit too much. Yeah. And that was something that, again, I encourage everyone to check out Nick's blog. It's called Sober and Thoughts. You can find it on Instagram. He's got a website. I'll link that below afterwards. But your blog really has been an opportunity for you to talk about that story and kind of walk people through the sequence of events that led you to believe the common denominator, if you like, was alcohol. Yeah. And after a while, you've went, hang on a minute, I've looked at all these different things, whether it's your relationships, your career, your mental health, your fitness, every aspect of your life where there had been, and that, not to say alcohol was the complete answer, but certainly a common thread was your relationship with alcohol. Mm-hmm. So talk to us a little bit about that, about kind of realising that was the case. So how did we get here?
I think I've always known that I've had a dysfunctional, that's how I describe it, a dysfunctional relationship with alcohol. Yeah. And that's lasted ever since I started drinking, which was probably at the age of, say, 16, 17. Yeah. I've always, like you alluded to before, I've always gone that little bit step too far, just not known the point of no return, if you like. Yeah. That one extra drink or those two extra drinks that really send you over the edge and give you that blind panic the next morning of waking up and thinking, bloody hell, what did I do last night? Mm-hmm. What did I say to someone? What have I done? Your mind leaps to the worst possible conclusions with beer fear. Mm-hmm. And I think, like I say, I think I've always known that it's been a problem, but I've never wanted to admit it to myself, to anyone else. For me to sit here across the table from you and say, I don't have a good relationship with alcohol, I am worse for it in my life. Yeah. I don't think I ever wanted to admit that, because I don't think I ever wanted to think it had got the better of me. Yeah. I think I always wanted to think I was in control of it. Yeah. And when I was drinking too much, that was my choice. Yeah. But it was getting to a point where having those extra drinks wasn't my choice anymore. Yeah. It was me out of control, losing complete control. And I couldn't carry on like that. I wasn't at a point where I was, an alcoholic as people imagine them to be, sat in a park drinking cider. Yeah. The stereotypical...
You were going to work. You were still in your relationship.
I was functioning.
Yeah. Yeah. You weren't, and again, to stress with this, I want to... Sorry to interrupt you there, bro. Why I want to make this clear to people is that I think that you are... Or you got to a point, again, maybe through identifying common themes or whatever it was, but you are self-aware enough to pick up on this. But I think some people, without judging them I would like to think maybe this episode makes some people stop and think and go, I'm not an alcoholic, but maybe my relationship with alcohol needs addressing, because you wasn't driving to work pissed. You wasn't going into work drunk. It was just the hangovers. And what we ultimately want to talk about today is how that affected Nick's mental health and his whole life. But then now, the positives to come from it. So I don't want you to think this is a pure depression session. This is a positive story, and it's just like I say, celebrated, and hopefully all of us can take some lessons from it.
Yeah, hopefully.
So what would you say for you, Nick, was the point of no return? So to give the lads listening to this the context, I've heard many times in people's fitness journey, which is what I'm always going to relate things to, because that's my thing, isn't it? You might have a time when you're with your kids at the beach and you take your top off and you think, fucking hell, I'm fat as fuck. Or you might be on a date with a girl and you get pied or whatever, and it's to do with your body, or maybe it's your own self-confidence within that, or you can't get a new partner, you get absolutely roasted at football training because you're fat and slow, or you're embarrassed to go. And they sound like people's probably thinking, fucking hell, being a bit harsh there. That is the whole nature of a point of no return moment. It's something happening to you that ultimately makes you maybe a little bit ashamed, but you kind of like, or really shocks you, but that's the point, as the sentence is. Point of no return, we say, right, something has to change. Yeah. So did you have something hit you in the face like that, or was it more a culmination of everything?
I think it was a combination of various things. When I got to the point of completely stopping, prior to that, it'd been a pretty heavy few weeks of drinking every day. Yeah. And I remember the point that the point of no return definitely was sat in my therapy session in Jesmond and still being pissed from the night before and talking to my therapist. Yeah. And I wasn't necessarily pissed, but I was still feeling the effects of drinking from the night before. Yeah. It was a really tough therapy session. We went through some really, really tough stuff, and I came away from it that night and I thought, this has got to stop. Yeah. This has to change, because the therapy was a waste of time. Up until stopping drinking, the therapy was a waste of time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I wasn't entering into it the way that I should have been. Same with the alcohol support coordinator that I was talking to. I wasn't getting the best out of those two things that were only trying to help me. Mm-hmm. And I just came away from that appointment and I just thought, I've got to change. I've got to do this for me and no one else. Ultimately, first and foremost, this has got to be done for me right now. Otherwise, I will get to that point where I'm waking up in the morning and thinking only about alcohol, and I didn't want to get to that point in my life. I didn't want that. I didn't want that for me. Yeah. It was that moment where I just stopped.
It's brave, isn't it? But it's also, I was just thinking this as you're saying it there, this thought, it's very, you're choosing yourself, aren't you, above probably anyone else, which I think is a really powerful thing. Yeah. Like, it's like you're putting your health, your mental health, your fitness, but you're only choosing just you yourself ahead of everyone else. I know for me, probably something I would think, and it's a question for you, is like, oh, well, I want to have, it's a little bit like, what would people think? Or would I have as good a time? Like, without alcohol, will I have the best time?
Yeah.
Like, I want to have the best time and everything, so would I have as good a time? So I think it really shows that you were at a point where you wanted to put yourself first that much that you said, no, like, actually, fuck everyone else having the best time. Like, you want to make sure that you're right.
Well, yeah, because ultimately, me having the best time in those situations where alcohol were occurring were, I think I've referred to it in a couple of the blogs that I've written, where that was affecting other people.
Yeah.
You know, if we were out for a night out, like, and I was too drunk, Jack would probably have to look after us and make sure that I got home all right, or you would, or Mikey would, or someone like that.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that is affecting other people then. So it's not. I had to stop it for myself first and foremost in that moment, but then moving forward, it was obviously going to affect my relationships with friends, with family, with work, with everyone. That hopefully it would move to a better.
I think ultimately, if you want, if people are thinking, if you want to have the best possible time with alcohol, but if you're having the best possible time, or you think you are, but it's maybe continually happening that you, how do you want to put it, making mistakes, making a fool of yourself.
Yeah.
Other people, at some point, you'll just be someone who people don't want to be around, and then you'll not have to worry about having the best time. You'll end up having no time because you're just not going to get invited to stuff. Yeah. What would you say so far, Nick, in terms of your experience, your nights out, how's that been so far?
Good, yeah. Do you know what? That was one of the things that I definitely was worried about, and what you said before was right, that people have this sense that, well, if I take alcohol out of a night out, it's not going to be as good, or it's not going to be as fun. And that, for me personally, with my experiences, that just hasn't been the case. Yeah. If anything, my experiences have heightened because I haven't drank. Yeah. And I've been in those situations with friends, or with my partner, or with family, and I've had a much better time. I've enjoyed it more. I've been more present in that moment. You know, I've remembered everything the next day. And all right, yeah, maybe it isn't the same. And if you don't drink on a night out, as opposed to drinking heavily or drinking at all, it is different. But it doesn't mean it can't be good. Yeah. Both can be good. If you have a healthy relationship with alcohol, you can do, then yeah, great. Like, you can continue to do that. My personal choice is not to do that anymore, and it hasn't detracted away from the times that I've had.
And what's been the benefits? So when we're talking about that specifically, we'll go on, I'll let you go. The time saved, what is it? What's the benefits been for you?
There's been many different things, from saving money, you know, physical health is a lot better. There's no empty calories.
Started the gym.
I've started going to the gym at least 3-4 times a week.
Yeah. And previously Nick had worked with me, but you trained completely at home.
Yeah, that's right.
And that might have been, again, this is just me point of having an open conversation on the podcast, is just thinking about it at the time, but in the past when Nick worked with us, we've done all these workouts from at home. Yeah. You didn't want to go to an actual gym, did you? I didn't. No. But that could have been maybe your self-confidence at the time that was linked to the drinking, that was then lingering into the week. Whereas now, no alcohol, now you go to the gym. Yeah. And you love the gym.
I love the gym.
It's a massive bother.
It's a strange. I did not think I would be sat here saying that I enjoy going to the gym, but I really enjoy. I couldn't imagine going back to that training at home now. Now, I obviously appreciate that'll work for some of your clients, and there's, I'm sure it does, and it did for me in that for that transformation. It was brilliant, and we had good results from it. But I love going to the gym now. But
you don't know by removing one thing from your life, which was ultimately a vice for you really as well, and a negative thing in a lot of ways. By removing that, you've allowed space for something else to come into it, both in terms of the time you've saved, fitness, health, whatever else you want to put, but also because of that, your self-confidence, the extra days in the week. I think that sometimes all of work, and I do this as well, when we're dieting, everything in life, there's trade-offs. If you want to achieve something, you have to, maybe whether it's sacrificing time, sacrificing certain foods that you don't want to eat to be in a calorie deficit. With business, putting time in. Everything, you can reframe it as, or you can rearrange the hierarchy of your values, as they say. I was reading about this recently, and that you can just learn to appreciate and value other things more, and you're not missing out on something. You're not going to get FOMO. You're not going to feel like you're missing out on nights out or you're not missing out on getting fucking mortal because you just realise through experience that you don't value that anymore. So you actually, sometimes people say about missing out on nights out. It's like people like to say to me, oh, well, you're missing out, with food or binging. I used to binge eat food. I can still eat a lot of food, but so much. But then instead of that, you reframe it, say actually, your hierarchy of values and what you value, and say, right, actually, I value more being fresh on a Sunday, having the energy to start another business, having the time to spend with my family, waking up on time, the confidence to go to the gym. You value not having anxiety. You put all these things above it and you rearrange it, and all of a sudden, you're not even missing the thing because all of a sudden you value something else more. That could also be, for example, volunteering, which is also something that you do. So touch on that.
Involved with a really, really good charity that's based down in the one that I volunteer for is in Byker in Newcastle, but we've got projects all over the northeast as well as all over the UK, and it's a food charity that takes surplus ingredients from supermarkets and wholesalers and gets all the ingredients together, cooks a meal up one night in a week, and people come who are struggling, whether it be financially, they could be homeless people, they could be anyone. There's no we don't say that one person can and can't come. Anyone can come along, and it's a really, really great organisation to be a part of. You can see the good that it's doing, especially at the moment. Obviously, everyone's aware of the pressures that the cost of living's putting on households, and more our services are becoming more and more needed. But personally, what it gives me is a really good sense of well-being, and I know that I'm helping other people. When I started doing it was during the pandemic year in 2020, and it really helped when I was furloughed from work in terms of mental health, and getting out of the house and not being cooped up for that time. I would go and volunteer 3-4 times a week during the time I was furloughed. I do it less so now because of having a job, and other people volunteer. We're quite a lot of volunteers, which is really good. But it gives me a good purpose to go and do it. I know that I'm helping people. It's a vital service, and I'll carry on doing it for as long as I can. Fantastic.
That leads us perfectly into the next question. So that's your first one, really, in terms of how did you do it. So I think for me there, what I'm hearing is identifying something that gives you purpose other than alcohol or other than drinking. So almost like something greater for you to do. So the first one was volunteering. And then what else did you use? So what are the tips, or what are that, not so much tips, but what did you personally do to start this process? So you had that point when you went to your meeting. Now 190 days ago, 6 months ago, just fucking class. But to that long ago, so you started, thought, right, where did you go from there? Was it, I know you started the blog, you had the volunteering, so talk me through the things that you've used personally that have helped.
The main thing that I wanted to do, and one of the things I would stress, is that if you are drinking regularly, you need to fill that void when you stop.
That's exactly what I'm saying when I say about something greater. That's a much better way of putting it. Something to fill the void, something to take away the time.
Because if you sit still and don't fill your time, then chances are that thing in the back of your mind of, oh, we'll have a pint or we'll have a glass of wine or something like that, it'll come back to the forefront of your mind.
And while we're on that, with the time and filling the void, we were in the car on the way here. Something that I was absolutely desperate to get into this episode, because I worked it out for myself, was I'm not a massive drinker in terms of the regularity or the frequency, but when I go out, Nick will testify, big, right? But I'm normally ruined the next day. And you think it's not that bad, he's healthy, trains, going hard. And it is a great laugh, and I do enjoy it. However, for me recently, when I've been sort of revisiting my goals, whether it was, training for holders, wanting to get in the best shape, business, if you think, and this was what I said to Nick in the car, if you go out, 3 and 4 nights in terms of your weekends. Let's say you got 3 Saturdays of the month.
Yeah.
Right? By the end of the year, you've went out 36 times based on that, right? If you do your 3 Saturdays a month, 12 months in the year, let's say you do that 36, not loads. You've still got, what's that? 16, quick math, 16 Saturdays of the year where you're not out. It's not like it's all the time. But then all of a sudden, if you think, right, so there's that 36 days of the year that you're hungover on a Sunday. So you're saying that you're spending over a month not being at your best on a Sunday in order to possibly have that night out for a few hours and get drunk and maybe do things that don't serve you anyway.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a purpose, if anyone listening, you want to start a podcast, you want to start a YouTube channel, you want to get better at fucking gaming, you little nerds out there, whatever it is that you want to do, you could be doing it in those 36 days. Yeah. You could be starting a business. You could be improving your relationship with your kids. You could be spending more time with your wife, reading books to make yourself better. There is literally a whole host of things. Equally, if you've had a great week and you've worked really hard, you could go and have a meal with yourself, you know, with your partner. You could spend that time, those 36 days, just watching a TV series. Not everyone has to be mega motivated, but could you be making better use of that time? And that was something for me that really hit home, and I was like, hang on a minute. If I think of a month's work, then I think of what I would typically earn or get paid in a month, and you're telling me I'm spending about that time being really hungover, not wanting to talk, not wanting to train, not wanting to diet, although I do normally go and make myself train, and then I normally feel worse after training, but I won't tell you that. But if you think
go for a run,
I always go for a run. Nick will tell you, when I'm hungover, people, you'll have seen it on Instagram, I always go for a run, and I normally always train as well. And I like to tell myself it makes it feel better. And whether it's just like a self-fulfilling prophecy, it normally does. But there's been times when I've felt really, really bad and I can't do anything. And you just sat there and you want to hold your head up and all that. I've been there several times a year. And I think that sometimes that can happen because, like Nick said, before we go back to Nick, if you don't fill that void, if you don't have a greater purpose, if you're not setting goals and using the other things that we teach in that in this podcast and with me, if you're not doing that, then why the fuck else wouldn't you get more on a Saturday night? What reason have you got not to be hungover on a Sunday? So ask yourself, what's your purpose? What's the reason? What are you going to do instead? And what can you write down and set that's going to motivate you, and then go and do it? Following on from that, go on.
It's exactly what you're saying, that those hungover days, those Sundays where you literally don't do anything and you'll eat crap food later on that day probably, and I read something recently, an article about hangovers and how long alcohol stays in your system, how much it affects your sleep, those kind of things. And it's longer than the 24 hours of that hungover next day. It goes into the Monday, even as you get older, possibly the Tuesday as well. It can be up to 72 hours that it stays in your system. And when you start quantifying hours like that, you think, bloody hell, that is a lot of time I'm wasting on something that, like you say, might give you a bit of happiness for a few hours.
Is the juice worth the squeeze? Is it worth doing it?
Well, that's the thing, because I'm not anti-alcohol.
No, you're not, and that's a stress, and I'm not either. I will still, after this, chin shots and do whatever else, but I think it's worth considering.
We both drank alcohol for probably different reasons as well. Yours was a means to an end, in that if you were in that particular moment you wanted to have a good time, and mine was more of a far more unhealthy, in terms of, well, I would probably drink in some weeks every day at some point in that week, whether it be a few beers at night or a glass of wine or what have you. Our relationships with it are completely different, and it's there's a lot of dead time associated with.
Just going back to that, because I know a lot of the men listening to this will have heard either me say this before, or them themselves might have found this. We are always pushing for that extra 1%, we want to be better, maximising time, particularly if we're training and with physique. And I know a lot of lads that won't have caffeine at night. So whether it's Monster, whether it's coffee, they won't have caffeine after 3 o'clock, they won't have caffeine after 6, because caffeine has a half-life of 6 hours, so that means it's in your system for around 6 hours. If you have a can of Monster at 7 o'clock at night, it is going to be affecting you when you go to sleep, and it's going to affect the quality of your sleep. What Nick's saying there is, and we don't know the exact stats on this, but there have been some studies, some articles suggested that alcohol can still be in your system and affecting you up to 72 hours afterwards. So if we're willing to take such measures to remove things like cans of Coke late at night, Monster later in the day, not having a cappuccino or a coffee after 12, after 3 because we're worried about our sleep, then yet we're still doing something that can be affecting all areas of our life for up to 3 days afterwards, potentially for some people.
Yeah.
So when you put it like that, you think
3 days.
Fucking hell, it's a big.
It's nearly half your week gone, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, or, you know, if it's from a. And Christ, imagine if you go out more than one night in a weekend.
Yeah.
You know, you do Friday, Saturday, or Saturday and Sunday afternoon or something like that. It's the knock-on effect through your week.
Yeah.
And what it's going to do to your training. Yeah. What it's going to do to your work life.
Your mental health.
Your mental health. Your sleep.
Yeah. And then maybe you're also not training, you're not doing the things that you know you should, you're not got a regular sleeping and waking time, which is really important for your mental health and your circadian rhythm. Then all of a sudden you get 3-4 days in, you may be starting to feel, maybe it's not depressed, but a little bit low, you're starting to question yourself a little bit, you're a little bit anxious, and then you go, and I've done this a few times, I go, hang on a minute, is everything that bad, or is it just, like, I've just been drinking a lot? Like, no, I've been drinking a lot, I've not been looking after myself, I've not been doing the things I know I should to feel good.
Yeah.
And then you get back to eating right about water, everything else, and you do get better.
It does, and once it filters out of your system, but ultimately alcohol is a depressant.
Yeah.
Ethanol in an alcohol makes you depressed.
Right.
So it's going to have those negative effects on you. It's going to affect your mental health, and it had a massive effect on me. But it affects all corners of your life, everywhere. Your relationships you're having with people, your mental health, your physical health, everything. Nothing's off limits, unfortunately, with alcohol. There's no actual physical or mental benefits of it, other than that initial high that it gives you for 1 or 2 hours on that night out.
So continuing that thread, then we talked about training, talked about your own journey, and we kind of went off on that lovely tangent there. But then the next thing was kind of the other sort of areas. So your support, obviously you started the blog. Talk about the other things that you use to kind of start and ultimately to keep going. What's got you to 190 days?
So what I was saying before about filling the void, that's
we
really, really important, is that when you take regular drinking out of your week, that you have things to fill it with.
Yeah.
So whether that's training, like I've been doing, read and listen to a lot of podcasts about sobriety.
Yeah.
Which I think is really important, because every now and again when you stop drinking, you will get that little, especially in the early days, you'll get that early point of where you think in your mind, I'm probably all right now. I'm probably going to have a few pints and I'll be all right.
Right.
That is when I go to a podcast straight away, or I go to a book and refresh my memory on why it is that I'm doing what I'm doing, my why. Training's been a massive thing for me. I've really, really enjoyed going to the gym with Jack, our friend. It's been absolutely crucial to keeping my head right, having something to focus on, because after I'd finished the work that I did with you last year, I put a fair chunk of weight back on just through drinking. So working back towards how I was probably like this time last year, really.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Was really important to me. I started to look better, I started to feel better. Everything started to become more. My mind became a lot sharper as well. So I couldn't have done this if I was drinking. Yeah. Because my mind wouldn't be focused. I wouldn't be able to articulate myself in the way that I'm doing now. Just wouldn't happen. My mind became a lot clearer. Support networks were really important. Obviously, I have a brilliant set of friends. You are all right. But the good thing about our friendship group is that it's all different. Yeah. So Jack, you and Mikey, I would say, obviously my closest friends, our closest group, and you're all different in your support and in the way that you have. Thankfully, none of you have tried to get me to drink again, which, is pretty important. And you obviously never would. But I have a great support network with my family, my partner. Work were incredibly supportive when I was going through my my struggles last year. Yeah. They were really good about me having time off. They didn't rush me back. They were, from an employer point of view, they were superb. And I know I was really fortunate with that, because not a lot of companies would even be that interested. They took a real interest in making sure I was getting back to full health and giving me that support. So I've had a lot of support from all different angles. Blogging obviously has been massive, being able to...
Do you feel like that helped you kind of let it out a little bit? To say, like,
I think so, yeah.
I think to say something like reading can calm your mind, and then like writing like lets it out if you're angry kind of thing, like a combination of the two.
I think writing the blogs there's been a mixture of emotions with it. There's been a couple of angry ones. There's been a couple of ones that I've probably written where I've felt depressed or down writing them, but afterwards better for doing it.
Yes.
And that is the critical part of it, is that I am, and I said from the outset for the blog, is that I'm doing it for myself.
Yeah.
And I'm getting...
Which I love. I think that's great.
Well, I think it's just being honest, really. Yeah. It's like, thankfully, it has helped other people.
You've helped loads of people have messaged you, haven't there? Loads of people have...
I had someone recently who got in touch, and they just contacted me one night in the week and just said, I think I've got a problem.
Yeah. And
through reading these blogs and reading your story, and it's very, very... I think it's more common than people realise, especially in our generation.
Yeah.
So I think now younger people are not drinking as much, whereas we are kind of the last part of a generation that still goes out and gets pissed.
Yeah.
I think if you go out on a Saturday night in Newcastle, I think the demographic of people hanging around the big market are
older,
late 20s, 30s and older. I don't think it's 18 and 19.
It was a big thing for us, meeting people and meeting new people, and maybe it's also at the time when we were younger, not so much now, but having the confidence to do so as well.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just a case of maybe meeting someone in somewhere where you'd like to meet them, like the gym or a coffee shop or wherever. It was like, well, I'll get drunk enough to have the confidence to maybe speak to them. Particularly when we were younger, I think we've all improved in different ways, and everyone listening will have since then. But I think that's really, really common. Do you think, Nick, would you say, how do I put this? Do you think you're always going to need to do this now? Do you think, and how do you feel about that? Do you think this is you going to be sober forever? Do you think it's going to be a problem for you to drink again?
I think yes. I want to sit here and say to you that I'll never drink again.
And that's your goal.
And that's my goal.
You can say it.
That's my goal. That is
good lad.
That is my goal, not to drink, because I've seen the effect that it's had with and without.
Yeah.
The without is better. Yes, there are moments where my mind does still think I could have a drink now, and I think that'll always be there.
Yeah.
And there will be stumbling blocks along the way. There will be life events that have negative effects on me.
Yeah.
And
then you might be tempted, but that's why it's important, like you said there, it's the things you mentioned. I'm going to just touch on them again for everyone. Writing was a big one for you in the blog. Training, and then a support group. Like your big three things.
Yeah, the biggest. Yeah.
When we're talking about sobriety and what you're doing at the minute, probably should have defined this at the beginning, but for you, relapsing or coming off that would be more going and getting, I probably said more in this episode than I ever have, going and getting really, really drunk. That would be...
Will everyone know what mortal means?
Getting unbelievably drunk, like blackout drunk.
Yeah.
That for you is relapsing. Now, to be clear, you've not had any alcohol at all in 190 days, but moving forward, are you... I'm just going to play devil's advocate with you. You're at your wedding. You're at my wedding. Right. You're at someone's wedding.
Yeah.
Champagne. Passed out. Are you having a glass of champagne? Or are you saying no? What? How do you feel about stuff like
that? I haven't been to a wedding yet.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
But I've been to a lot of different social events where it would have been easy for me to drink.
Yeah.
I like you said, like you touched there before, relapsing for me would be having a drink and then what that would lead on to. So it would be the days after, the weeks after of continuous drinking and then drinking more and building up that tolerance to alcohol that I had. Not necessarily, if I accidentally drank something that I wasn't aware of. Someone put a vodka in my Coke that I got from the bar.
Yeah.
I don't...
You're not like, oh, that's my 190 days. Do you think some people do that? Do you think that I see this a lot in, for example, people maybe not doing the 28-day challenge, or people not doing the 12 weeks because they say things like, oh, well, I've got a wedding coming up, or I'm going on a holiday, or it's my brother's sister's cousin's fucking bar mitzvah. I don't know anyone's doing, but the point is, they've got some sort of party, right? They've got something that really is insignificant in the relation of the journey that they could be taking with health and fitness and their goals. But what people do is because they think they kind of almost be a bit of a martyr, and they use those events as a way out of trying to achieve their goals, because ultimately they're scared of failure. So do you think with you're happy to say, no, look, like actually, like there might be the odd time at a wedding and that happens, but ultimately you're still chasing and you still have the goal and the aspiration of...
Yeah. The goal is to not drink again.
Yeah.
The reality of it could happen.
Yeah.
My goal is for it not to happen.
But that's not going to stop you chasing it.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's the point. No.
Just
because you can't be perfect.
If this was neat vodka now and I didn't realise and took a sip of it, then I'll just...
But even if you did, do you think you get back to it the next day? Not saying that you're going to, but theoretically if you did...
I think so.
Good.
Yeah, because
Good, mate.
I can see the benefits that it's had with my therapy, with training, with everything.
Yeah.
All the different things we talked about before, all the positive things that have come from stopping outweigh the momentary high that I would get from...
And the chance as well, I'll be honest with you, alcohol, I'll give you a little bit of my insight here. I love festivals, love going away and getting absolutely wrecked for the weekend. Every time that I've went, Tomorrowland, all these festivals, as I've got older, got a little bit wiser, generally speaking, I've got a little bit less out of control and I've got a little bit less drunk. And the reason for that is that what I realised was like, fucking hell, I've come here for the music.
Yeah.
And I can't remember any of the sets. The first couple of years I'd go, I couldn't even remember seeing my favourite DJs. What's the point? I genuinely like the music. I have it on in the house all the time. There can be nights out with your friends and they're really good opportunities to bond. I'm not saying that alcohol can't like add some lubrication to the social situations, but sometimes you end up sort of missing the opportunities that you have because you're kind of diving headfirst into getting drunk or whatever it is that you're doing, and you actually miss out the thing that you originally intended on doing.
Do you think you could go to a festival and not...
I thought that this year. Probably the first year.
I'm literally writing about it in a blog this week about... So I've just come back from holiday.
Yeah.
And obviously not drank at all, and that's a first experience for me. And how much it's enhanced the experience. Yeah. Of not feeling rough and awful and not over consuming on the drink. It'd be interesting.
Yeah.
One of the things I ask a question is that could you go on holiday and have half a week or the full time away and not drink? Yeah. And if you that'd be.
And I think with that,
I think you should do that.
I would. I think I probably would. I thought about that a lot, and I think for me, I must admit for everyone, I've drunk, which I know is probably not a great example, but I'm always honest. I've always probably binge drink. I don't necessarily like the taste of alcohol. No. You know that. As much as people probably don't believe it, I'm not someone who, if we were just sat in the house now having a bit of a crack, I've never been someone who drinks alcohol ever. I've never been sat having just a couple of cans. No. If I went to the pub, I probably wouldn't have a pint. Or when I'm out, that's not really me. So for me to have longer periods of not a lot of drinking anyway, has been not as difficult for us. Yeah. But what I wanted to get there with the 190 days thing and what you've done so far and the overall goal, and everyone listening to this, it might not be alcohol, but it might be going to the gym, it might be, could be drugs, could be your work. We've all had periods in our life when we're in situations that are making us uncomfortable or not necessarily achieving our best. It could be that you're in a relationship that you don't want to be in. But for some of us, unfortunately, we need to reach, looping right back to the beginning, the point of no return. You need to almost hit rock bottom. Even though you're aware of what's going on and you know that your weight is spiraling out of control and that you're not going to the gym and that it's not doing your mental health any good, unfortunately, a lot of people keep going and keep pushing, and they keep having an argument with their wife or their partner until they split up, or they keep neglecting their role at work and not doing the work, hoping that someone notices to fire them or get them to kick the arse, because people are searching for that rock bottom to get a hit. So if you're listening to this and you feel like that in any area of your life, like, let this be a lesson that you don't actually have to hit rock bottom. Yeah. You can reach out, you can get support, you can turn it around without putting yourself through more pain, what is ultimately pain. And don't let being perfect get in the way of just being good. Don't fucking not start because you think, I love a plug. I kind of do the full 28 days. You kind of, Nick didn't fucking stop drinking thinking I'm never going to be able to do 190 days.
Yeah.
I'm never going to do it for the rest of my life. Just do the day in front of you.
Yeah.
Just focus on doing what you can and the best you can of what you have available, whether that's at your work, whether it's with your health and fitness, whether it's with drinking, whatever it is, just do the best you can, and if you need it, get help, and then move forward.
Yeah.
The last one, mate, I just want to I know we've kind of probably covered these. Before we go to the legendary quickfire round.
Can't wait.
Legendary.
Yeah.
Tips and action points, take homes. So for someone, like I did mention there, maybe if someone's thinking they might have a bit of a problem with alcohol, what would your tips be? Just give her 3 or give her a few just to kind of bam, bam, bam.
Yeah, well, I think it's different for everyone. Everyone's got a unique experience and will have a unique relationship with alcohol. So, but there are easy support things that you can access. So you can seek the help of a professional, whether that be a doctor or an alcohol support group. I think a lot of people think of alcohol support groups as like sitting in a circle going like, hi, my name's Nick. I'm an alcoholic. And to be fair, I probably thought that before I went to this NHS organisation in Newcastle.
Yeah.
The woman who looked after me was brilliant, not judgmental at all. She was really supportive.
Yeah.
And I would definitely not be sat here 6 months down the line without her.
Yeah.
I would definitely recommend that. There's loads of literature, podcasts.
Tell us some of the podcasts on YouTube, because I know YouTube's been a big one for you, hasn't it? Watch the guy on YouTube.
This guy called Leon, Clear Sober. 8, 9, 10 minute videos.
Yeah.
That's
just him talking about his journey being sober.
So he's about 3.5 years, I think. Yeah. Sober. Now he was probably similar to me in terms of his relationship with alcohol, in that it was bingey, but over like a longer period of time. Yeah. Not getting up in the morning and having a drink of vodka. But alcoholism can take different forms. I think that's one of the big messages that he kind of gets across. Yeah. But his relationship was I associated myself with it straight away. So I watched loads of those videos just back to back. He does loads. They're free to view, obviously just on YouTube. Yeah. Just little simple things like that. Like, I think the biggest thing that he tries to get across is to get you to reevaluate your relationship with alcohol, right? How you perceive what alcohol does for you. Because looping back to what we said right at the start, is that people might not think that they can have as good a time on a night out. Where he dispels that myth pretty much early on and says, well, actually, you do this, this and this, or this and this, and you have just as good time. He talks about all the different benefits of doing it, but he also talks about the negative experiences that he's had. He talks about actors and people that have gone sober and their different experiences. It's really, really good. Yeah. But there's loads of them, like hundreds.
So that gives you, again, like what I was talking about, gives you like it surrounds you with like-minded individuals, people on the same journey as you, who you can take inspiration from, again, learn from their mistakes rather than making them yourself, and you can kind of build from that.
I think one of the big things that I would want to try and get across is that, like I said, with people probably more our age and older, this is far more. People have far more bad relationships with alcohol than they really let on. Yeah.
Talk about it.
And are willing. Yeah.
And you're always open, aren't you?
Well, that was the big thing about the blogs. Yeah. Is that, I mean, some of the stuff that I covered,
Sober and Thoughts. Remember, everyone search that. It's a really cool little logo.
Yeah. Yes. One of the things I try and get across in a couple of the blogs is just, I'm willing to write these things down and tell you fucking deep dark secrets about me, or what I perceive to be deep dark secrets.
And do you feel like that's given you a sense of fulfillment and almost?
I think it's liberated some of the.
That's a good eye.
Like some of the.
Maybe I should stop drinking and I'd use liberated in a sentence properly as well.
Well, I might not have done that, but I just think I have. I think that it's allowed me to give myself a bit of a break. Yeah. Because up until stopping, every bad thing that I've ever done whilst I've drank, would always be on my mind.
Yeah.
And I'm getting these stories out there in blogs, and I'm committing them to paper, and I'm letting other people know.
Disassociating from it a little bit by writing it down.
But also kind of understand that I've never really done anything that bad.
Yeah.
I haven't hurt anyone. I've hurt myself plenty of times.
Yeah, have I?
But I've never physically hurt someone. I've been a fucking burden to people on of time.
Yeah, have I?
And will continue to be probably. But I haven't done anything too bad.
Yeah.
I've done some stupid shit that I've probably been lucky to get away with as well. I've covered that in one of a recent blog. But giving myself a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
And going a little bit easier on myself and not necessarily, really taking myself apart on stuff. Getting it down, writing it down, putting it out there for other people to read probably makes other people think, oh, well, maybe some of the stuff that I've done isn't that bad, and it might let themselves have a bit of a break on themselves. And
so for the people listening, watching on YouTube, hit like, comment, subscribe, all the usual. For those people, it's just a general next step. Would you say even just try and having a night out? Would you say set a target, or would you just say have a bit of open dialogue with those around you? Say, listen, I've just listened to this podcast. Here's the episode. It says they were talking about one of Ross's mates. Nick was on. He's went sober. I'm thinking, would you say that people should be saying, I'm thinking I'm going to give it a go for a week, a month, or is it as simple as just saying, I think I'm going to maybe reevaluate what I'm doing right now? Do you think it's a good idea for us not drinking as much? Just maybe have a discussion with your mates and saying, like, are we really having that much of a good time when we're getting absolutely hammered? Everyone's been on it out with your mates and you're trying to pull birds and then you go, fucking hell, I was just too drunk. Or you're like, what is it that is it that you're trying to have conversations with your friends? Is it that you're trying to enjoy a weekend? Is it that you're doing it because you've got a bit of anxiety and you're drinking it, to subdue that?
Yeah.
But
people drink for lots of different reasons.
Lots of different reasons, and that's the point. Yeah, we're not trying to do a one-size-fits-all approach and tie everyone with the same brush.
But it's just demonise people that drink.
No, nah.
We said that before, didn't we? I'm not sitting here saying that I'm against people.
And neither am I at all. I'm going to continue to drink moving forward, but I think it's certainly opened my eyes to. And I think just maybe it's just having a conversation on it, both with other people and with yourself, and saying like, so what would you say to that? How would you say, is it just as simple as that, having a conversation, or would you say set a target? Would you say swap lager for wine? What? I don't know.
Christ, don't do that. It's stronger. Don't drink pints of wine. I think everyone will be in their own situation. Now, the person that reached out to me the other day I'm the only person up until they spoke to their family about it who knew about that.
Yeah.
So they had read the blogs, seen my posts and stuff, followed it, and sent me a message to say, look, I think I've got a problem. Do whatever you feel comfortable with. Speak to your friends, speak to your partner, speak to your doctor, speak to your mum, your dad, anyone. It's better than keeping it hemmed in to yourself, because chances are you'll put it off, you'll kick it further down the road and not do anything about it if you think you've got a problem with it. Or if you think that maybe when you go out you do drink a little bit too much and maybe get into a few difficult situations, then maybe one of the things that the therapist that I talked to said was, have a drink, then have a glass of water. Yeah. There's lots of different little techniques that people can and try. Yeah. Can do and try. Everyone's unique situation will be,
But review it, is what we're saying. Following this episode, just have a think. Spend 5 minutes thinking about it.
If you're having that internal discussion in your head where you think, I've got a problem, or I think I might have a problem, chances are you've probably got a problem.
But even not for the people having a problem, like I mentioned at the beginning, certainly for me, what excited me in a positive way, and again I'll go back to it, sort of restructuring my values and looking at what I could have instead, looking at the trade-offs of, like I say, when you sacrifice takeaways, you can get leaner, you can be healthier, you can play with your kids more, you've got better health, you're going to live for longer, all these things. Equally with this, it's like, right, I'm not going to be hungover on a Sunday. What could you be doing with that time? Maybe that's it. You might not have a problem, but you might just want to be getting to you might be in an age where you want to review your life.
You want more fulfillment and better use of your time.
And we're not saying everyone, by the way, is going to fucking turn into Mother Teresa like Nick here and go and volunteer at a food shelter and start writing a blog. However, you might do something like that. And look at all the people you've helped. Like, genuinely, I'm really, really proud of you. I think it's really brave what you've done. Like, I love reading them because I occasionally get a mention. But also, I do really, really like them. And
that's the reason.
I can see genuinely the difference in you. Since you've stopped drinking, I think your skin's a lot better as well. Yeah, you look healthier. That's obviously really good.
Yeah.
But in general, your confidence, and you're always confident anyway, but I think you've been more consistent with it across the board. The gym's just one example of that. The fact that you then took up the blog, you're sharing all this new stuff, you're doing better at work.
Yeah.
I've not mentioned that as well. Your performance at work's a lot better as well. Your relationship's better. There are literally so many benefits.
Mm-hmm.
So I am, like I say, I couldn't be prouder of you. However, I'll be even prouder of you in 5 minutes when we finish the legendary quickfire round. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Right. Same 8 questions that I always ask everyone. The first 4 are always a little bit different, just to kind of get them thinking. And then the last 4 are always the same. So every podcast guest I've had on answers these last 4 questions. So no pressure. You ready?
Go for it.
Keep them nice and short, and the last one.
Just one word answers.
Ideally, you can follow up with anything else. First one, rugby or football?
Football.
Season ticket holder.
Doesn't need an explanation.
And we're flying now, aren't we?
Well, up the mags.
We're getting there.
Up the mags.
Cats or dogs?
I've always had both. I've got a cat at the moment. If you follow me on Instagram, he's on it every day.
He's an absolute legend.
But I love dogs as well. Cats just shade it.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee. Yeah, 100%.
This is an interesting one for you. Write or read?
Read, I think.
Reading still?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think other people have got far more interesting things to say than I have. So reading, definitely.
Do you find writing, here's a fucking cathartic? That's a big word, that, isn't it?
Yeah, in a lot of ways.
For you personally, do you think it's maybe helped?
It's good for the process of what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
I read them back and think they're an absolute bag of shit. Some people say they're alright, so...
Check them out. Find out for yourself after this episode.
Thoughts.
Right. Last 4.
Yeah.
What is the worst place you have ever been in your life?
God.
You been to Sunderland away?
I've been to Sunderland. Girlfriend's from Sunderland. Bless her.
What is the worst place? It can be in the UK, it can be a holiday you went on, it can be wherever.
Magaluf's pretty minging, isn't it? It's not great.
No.
It's probably not the worst place in the world. I don't know.
We can lock in Magaluf if you like. We've got to go with Summit.
There's a place in Leeds that I used to go through on the bus when I was at uni.
There we go.
That was pretty grim.
Get with.
I think it's Beeston.
Oh, it is there rough when you play the football.
It's near Elland Road.
Yeah. Best place you've ever visited? What is the best?
I really, really enjoyed Barcelona.
Yeah,
when Chloe and I went a couple of years ago. Munich. Absolutely. I love Germany. I've been to Germany about 4 or 5 times, I think.
Yep.
I really, really love the culture. People always have this weird misconception about German people based on stupid things about putting towels on sun lounges, which isn't true anyway. I love the German culture. I think it's brilliant.
So
I'd say Munich or Barcelona. Yeah.
Awesome. Right. A little bit more of the thinking for the last 2.
Right.
What is the worst piece of advice you have ever been given?
It's a good question. I'm not sure. Probably something alcohol related, I would imagine. That'll give you confidence. A lot of people have said that alcohol will give you confidence. I think it gives you a false sense of confidence that masks who you really are. Everyone changes when they drink. I think it's probably that, yeah.
Brilliant. That's really good. That's a good one. And then lastly, what is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
I was trying to think something aesthetically trained related. Just try and shoehorn that in there.
No. For you personally, what's the best, or what's maybe is a mantra or something that you hold, you know, personally that you believe to be true, or the best advice. Not for anyone else, for you personally, not to pass on, just for you personally. What's impacted you the most?
This is the first thing that's popped into my head, and it's exactly something that my dad said to me when I was at school, that enjoy your time at school, they will be the best days of your life. And it's always stayed with me, because at the time I thought, what a load of shite. But I think it's probably right. I think you have very little responsibilities as a young person growing up, or most people do. Obviously some people can be less fortunate than that, but you have very little responsibility. You are in a place with all your friends for 6-7 hours a day, and then you can spend time with them after as well. I think being at that age, enjoying that time of life, I think that was the message he was saying, was to enjoy
what you have, or you've got, it kind of thing.
Yeah, enjoy that period of your life, because once you get older, things change, and not necessarily become bad, but become more serious, and you have to be more
present.
You have to. Yeah.
Awesome. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Bro. I will put all the information for Nick, his blog, in the comments section, the information below the episode. Make sure that you hit like, comment, subscribe. Find Nick on social media. Yeah. That was awesome, bro. Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's been really good fun.
Awesome.
You've been listening to Aesthetically Trained, the podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and spread the word.